It's one of life's biggest questions, to have kids or not to have kids. But what does that choice really look like, say, 40 or 50 years down the road? Well, today, we're going to dive into a super personal story about being childless by choice. This isn't a debate, not at all. It's a look back from someone who's 65, who's lived it, and is basically ready to share the final verdict.
And it kicks off with this line right here. Talk about getting straight to the point, right? No fluff, no messing around, just, hey, you want a real perspective? I've got one for you. This is not some abstract idea or a what-if scenario. This is a real story from a real person who's at the finish line of that choice and can tell us exactly what it feels like.
All right, so let's get into it. A perspective at 65. What does this life choice actually look like from, well, the finish line?
Okay, so let's talk about the why. The freedom of choice. We're going to explore the life that was actually lived. And really, it all boils down to this single idea. He's quick to say, hey, I love kids, but what he loved even more was the freedom to do what he wanted whenever he wanted. It was a totally conscious choice, a decision made in favor of his own autonomy.
So this is kind of how he frames the choice, like a fork in the road. On one side, you've got a life where, a surprise $300 car repair could send you into a spiral of stress. And on the other side, a life built around freedom and fun. And he's very clear they took full advantage of that second path.
So, what was the result of taking that path? Well, he puts it pretty simply. A life that was wonderful and full of fun. It sounds like it was just packed with these amazing, cherished memories, all of which were possible because they made that call to just go all in on that freedom together. But of course, a choice this massive is never one-sided. There are always trade-offs. So now we're going to flip the coin and take a look at what was given up. And this is what I find so incredible. The self-awareness. He says, I won't lie. He wasn't blindsided by this later in life. He says he always knew that at this age, he might have some regrets. It was like he'd already calculated it as a potential cost of the life he chose, right from the very beginning. And here's one of the most specific, and I think you'll agree, most poignant trade-offs. He talks about seeing his friends interacting with their grandkids, and he uses the word magical to describe it, but is brutally honest with himself, admitting, I will never have that feeling. It's such a clear-eyed acceptance of a door that he knows is permanently closed. So beyond those emotional trade-offs, there's also the very real, very practical side of things. I'm talking about the fear of getting older. Specifically, that fear of what happens when you're old and you don't have that immediate family support system. And, the potential for loneliness. And man, he does not sugarcoat this fear. He lays it out in the starkest terms possible. You can just feel the vulnerability when he says, it's just me and my wife. The implication is heavy. If she passes away before he does, he'll be completely on his own, with no local family at all. So, after all that, weighing the incredible freedom against these very real trade-offs and fears, what's the final verdict? Okay, so this is it. After laying out a whole lifetime, the freedom, the amazing memories, and the known trade-offs he walked into with eyes wide open, it all comes down to this one simple question. And his answer? It couldn't be more direct. Not a chance. That's it. Just 2 words. But man, those 2 words carry the weight of an entire life's decision, and there is zero hesitation in them. So, let's just recap. He acknowledged missing out on the magic of grandkids. He acknowledged the very real fear of future loneliness. And after all that, the final regret count? A big, fat 0. And his story wraps up with this really beautiful sense of peaceful acceptance. He can admit to himself, yeah, maybe the best years of my life are behind me. But his focus isn't on what's lost or what he's afraid of. Instead, it's all about cherishing the incredible memories of a life that he lived absolutely to the fullest, completely on his own terms. His story is just such a powerful reminder that there isn't one single blueprint for a happy, fulfilling life. There are so many different paths, and it kind of leaves us all with a pretty big question to think about for our own lives, whatever path we're on. What does a life without regret truly look like for you?